everyone, and welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails, the weekly podcast that helps you grow your business, improve your life, and enjoy yourself along the way. I'm your host, Alan Langer, and every week we try to bring you the best thought leaders, the best business leaders, and the best minds out there to help you succeed in business and in life. So sit back, relax, grab your pad, your pen, and your favorite beverage, and enjoy the next episode of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. This is your host, Alan Langer. We are in episode 24, and we've got a great guest tonight. I actually met this guest on LinkedIn, and she's become sort of a virtual friend. We chat pretty regularly. She's joined my weekly networking group. She did a presentation. You are really going to enjoy her today. But before we get to LORRAINE Ball, which I'll introduce her in a minute, just a couple of quick reminders. The website is marketingandsalespodcast.com. And don't forget the question of the week. If you submit a question of the week where you submit it to the podcast, if I answer it, my guest answers it, we use it that week, you will get a free signed autographed copy of my book if we use your question. So go to marketingandsalespodcast.com, go to the contact section, send me the question. If we use it, you get a free book from me. Okay, enough of that. LORRAINE Ball, she is going to be introduced in a couple of seconds. But before I tell you, this is what she does. So she owns Roundpeg, I guess a marketing company, Roundpeg. It's called Roundpeg. You can find her on LinkedIn. I asked my guest to sort of give me a little bio, and I love what she wrote here. She's like, after spending too many years in corporate America, LORRAINE said goodbye to the bureaucracy, the glass ceilings, and the bad coffee. So that's going to tell you enough. LORRAINE, is a joy to have you on my podcast. Welcome. Thanks for joining me tonight.
Oh, thanks so much for the invitation. I love hanging out with you.
That's awesome. It's been great. You are really a knowledgeable, you've been in digital marketing and all of this stuff for 25 years now?
Oh, God, that makes me sound so old. But yeah. Pretty
so
close.
You know what that means? That means you know your shit. That's what it means.
Either that or I tap dance really well.
So, LORRAINE, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, because you really have some great insight. I've seen your stuff. I've listened to some of your podcasts. By the way, LORRAINE has her own podcast, which we'll get into in a minute. But tell the audience a little bit about yourself and you know why you keep doing what you do. It seems like you definitely have energy, so it seems like you love it.
I really do. As I say in the bio, I left corporate because I had all of these great ideas, and it was so hard to get anything done. And I think the straw that broke the camel's back was I was working for a company that was sliding into bankruptcy. And rather than lay off any of my people, I pitched an idea to management to let me sell our services in the open market and use that revenue to actually pay the salaries of my team until we came out the other end.
Wow.
Well, other managers tried to copy that, and I will tell you that there was only one department that made any money, and that was my team. And as I'm watching this, I thought to myself, you know what? I just need to do this on my own.
Yeah.
And so I did, and I really like it. I love working with business owners. I love training. I'm a teacher at heart, and I love to see the light bulbs go on. Mm-hmm. And I really enjoy talking to business owners and sort of being a part of their story, because they've got so much energy. Even now, even as crazy as all of this is around us, there isn't anybody I'd rather hang out with than a bunch of business owners.
I agree with you 100%. Before we go on, I don't want to forget, I always give my guests a virtual cheer. So what is your cocktail of choice this evening? Tell the audience what you're enjoying.
This evening I'm drinking American honey. It's produced by Wild Turkey. It is actually a bourbon cut with honey. And the story is that the brewmaster's wife didn't actually like bourbon, and this was his life's work, and she didn't like how it tasted. And so, and he would not allow clear alcohol in the house. So the compromise was he made this for her, and they are just adorable. We were down in the brewery, in the distillery, last year, right about this time. And we got a chance to meet them. And they're in their 80s now, and they are just adorable. And I have a bottle signed by his wife, Jenny, and I enjoy drinking it.
I feel very special. So virtual cheers to you for joining me tonight. Thank you very much. I love it. I'm actually going to go out and get a bottle of that tomorrow, as you sounds very tasty. So
it is. It can be a little bit problematic because it is very tasty.
It's so good. Well, I'm going to give a little local plug. So I am having some Rhody Coyote. This is hard apple cider, and it's made locally in Rhode Island here. And I will tell you, it is delicious. I'm not a big hard apple cider fan, but I bought it. I was at the Newport Winery down in Newport, Rhode Island, and they had this. I'm like, let me try this, and I absolutely love it. So it's a little sweet drink, but it's what I'm enjoying tonight. So you've got honey, I've got apple cider. Let's get into this. So tell me where you came up with the name Roundpeg. I love that because I know on your LinkedIn profile it says not everything fits into a round hole.
A square peg, yeah. You know, the statement, a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
You know, this idea that I never fit in corporate America. I don't know if you remember, there was a book, Peter Drucker wrote a book probably back in the 80s on how to be successful. And one of the things that he said was that you needed to hire crazy people, not just people with interesting resumes, but people that were absolutely crazy. And I read this and I thought, oh my God, this is spectacular. And I go running down the hall to my boss and I'm like, okay, so here's the deal. I think we should hire crazy people. And he looks across the table and he looks at me and he says, why do you think we hired you? Got it. What I didn't do at that time, and it was years before I did, is go back and read the next section of the book where Peter Drucker explains that companies hire crazy people and then they spend a lot of time trying to get these square pegs to fit in the round holes of their organization, and they try to cut their corners off. And
that's a great image.
Yeah. And that was really my experience in corporate. And so when I started Roundpeg, it was all about a place where I fit. And it is also about creating solutions that fit for my customers and recognizing that even two companies in exactly the same industry don't always need exactly the same solution. And so it's really about where are you, what are your corners, and how do we get that right fit for you?
That's a great point, because when I do work with companies, mostly from the sales side, but inevitably I'm looking at their marketing and their bad websites usually and things like that. And recently I was doing some work with a manufacturing company, and we're talking like a manufacturing company that you have no idea. There's so many manufacturing companies for parts and things you have no idea exist, like little tiny itty bitty parts that go into cell phones. There's $1 million manufacturing companies for these things. So I'm dealing with this one company that does most of their stuff is the insulation around wires.
Oh my goodness.
Like, talk about, they're a multi-million-dollar company. And there's only like 4 or 5 of them in the whole country. And I looked at all 5 websites and they all were terrible. So I'm like, this is going to be pretty easy to distinguish you guys from this dry, so it's really interesting in the same space, but all you need to do is kind of differentiate yourself a little bit and go from there. So.
Yeah. And I think it's really about figuring out what you're comfortable with, because again, not every, our style, you may have noticed this about me, is that my style's a little out there, and some companies are not going to be comfortable with it. And that's okay. That's, you got to be comfortable with what you offer and working with companies that appreciate it. Absolutely.
Because there's, I tell, when I train sales reps, I'm like, you know what, there are some customers you don't want. You cannot sell. Everyone cannot be your customer, because if you do that, you're going to be an unhappy person. You're going to have more conflict in your life than you ever want. So,
absolutely.
Awesome stuff. So we were chatting before I hit the record button, and you said something that really kind of rang a bell with me, and I want you to go over this. You talked about something you're calling reoptimization. And I love the concept because you and I post a lot of content. You have your own podcast. I have mine. I'm doing content 2 or 3 times a week on LinkedIn. And sometimes it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do this week? Like, what am I going to talk about? Tell the audience what you mean by that and how that can help the people who are listening that already post content or even are thinking about doing it.
So, when you first start, you've got to have kind of this base of content, but really good content answers the questions your customers are most likely to have. And any business, how many of those questions do you really have? Half a dozen, a dozen, but you keep creating new content. And the example I gave you was the heating and air conditioning contractor. How many different ways can I talk about a high efficiency furnace? Well, I've been doing this for 25 years. I've been writing blog posts about furnaces for 20 years. After a while, they get a little repetitive. And so what happens is both people coming to your website as well as search engines get bored because they see a lot of the same stuff. And you're kind of on this treadmill because you got to keep creating more and creating more. And the trick is stop. And instead of creating another blog post or another, video with a transcript, go back and make what you have better, optimize what you have. And it's a pretty simple formula. You find an old blog post. Number 1, you want to add at least 100 words of new information. And that sounds daunting, but I got to tell you, you can knock out 100 words. This blog post was written in 2010. And although a decade has gone by, there's a lot of valid information and makes this post still worth the read. I've already given you 25 words. You haven't done anything, but Google sees that as 25 new words. So a minimum of 100 new words. If you can add a picture and make sure that you title the picture with your keyword. You want to add an inbound link from somewhere else on your website to that page, and you want to create an outbound link from that page to something else on your website so you start sharing the authority between the pages. If you've recorded a podcast, embed the episode in the post. Maybe you have a video. Or one of the things that I started doing a couple of years ago is I would look at these older posts and I would essentially maybe not read the whole post, but read a synopsis of it, get a little 1 or 2 minute audio file, drop that puppy in there. I also use that on my podcast and they're connected. So all of these little tweaks, and I can reoptimize 3 or 4 blog posts in the same amount of time that it would take me to write one more blog post about furnace filters.
But the concept here is Google will see fresh content and will start moving that blog post or start trending that blog post because it's, even though most of the stuff is old, there's 100 new words, there's a new link, there's a new picture, things like that. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely. And the last trick is if you're using Google Search Console, and you should be using Google Search Console,
okay,
you take the hyperlink to that post and you submit it to Google and say, hey, we've updated this. So you don't wait for Google to figure out that you've updated it. You kind of toss it over. Now, if you've got a lot of posts, how do you decide which ones to optimize? Mm-hmm. Take a look at blog posts that used to get a lot of traffic and aren't getting a lot of traffic anymore. Mm-hmm. That tells me that there used to be something really good there, and maybe it just needs to be refreshed. We have a client, Randall Beans. They make beans in glass jars. I have fascinating customers.
Wait, they make beans in glass?
In glass jars. They are the only company to manufacture beans in glass jars.
Like beans you eat or like for decorative purchase? Oh.
No. Kidney beans, lima beans. Everybody else sells them in cans. They sell them in glass jars. I love these guys. We've worked with them for years. We wrote a blog post entitled, "What's the difference between a navy bean and a cannelloni bean?"
Okay.
That blog post drove traffic to their website every week for 7 years.
Really?
Every week. And one day it just stopped because one of their competitors wrote a blog post on the same subject. So what did we do? We went in, we beefed up the post, we added a link to a new Great Northern Bean recipe, and you know what? We're number one again.
That's fabulous. I love it.
Yeah. It's not rocket science. Everybody has got those half a dozen, if you look, those half a dozen blog posts that are just killer excellent. Why not put them to work for you?
Okay, so is this just with blog posts? What about the person like me? I only have a few, maybe 10 blogs. I was trying to be consistent on it, and I just started being consumed with video content because it's blog writing and video. It's just so time consuming. So I just do video stuff. So is there something that I can do to repurpose, or what would you suggest for someone like me? And there's other people that do what I do.
So one of the things that I would absolutely do is, are you pulling transcripts for your episodes yet?
Not full transcripts. No, I just have show notes, on my website.
So I would do a couple of things. Number one, I would beef up the show notes after the episode has been released. Mm-hmm. Add additional content to the show notes.
Okay.
Add links between episodes where you've got maybe, tonight I'm going to talk about optimization. Well, maybe somebody else talks about SEO in a couple of weeks. Those two have got a nice natural connection. Mm-hmm. Cross-purpose those. I would also, it's tedious and it's time consuming, but I would use a transcription tool if you have a particularly good episode. Oh, I don't know, like this one.
Like that one, yep.
Like this one. Get a full transcript. And the reason is Google sees that you have a video, but Google doesn't watch the video. They can, which is creepy in and of itself, but they don't really watch the video and they don't index the content that's in the video. So the show notes help, but there's a lot of great information that Google could latch onto if you could present it to them. So it's exhausting. I don't do full transcripts, and my show is a lot shorter than yours. Mm-hmm. So, but every now and then, if I have an episode that's really good, I might write a companion blog post.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good idea. That's a great idea. I never thought about that. Yeah. Look at that. Okay, we're done with the podcast. I'm going to work on this right now. What a great idea. See, that's why I have this podcast, so I can learn stuff from brilliant people like you. I love that.
Well, I'll tell you who did a great job. Sam Moss. I think he's been on your show.
Yeah, Sammy Moss. Yep. He was early on. Yep. He's really good with websites.
So he was a really great guest, and his show was very organized. Mm-hmm. So it was really easy for me to listen to that and then write that companion post. So if you've got somebody that really kind of gives you a nice step by step. Yeah,
and he did that. Yep.
Yeah.
Instead of the rambling people that I've had a few of those as well. Everyone's been great. I don't want to say that. No, everyone. Did you? I don't know if you heard Dan Tyre from HubSpot. You know Dan?
I don't know him. I saw that you had him. I haven't had a chance to listen yet.
You really should. He's an absolute character is a mild way to say it, but he was the first salesperson at HubSpot when they were like 4 people in the whole company.
Oh my goodness.
And he's gone from that to what HubSpot is today. And just so much, he's forgotten more than I'll ever know kind of thing, just a brilliant guy. But it was one of those okay, take a breath, Dan. This is my show. No, he's a great guy. It was a lot of fun. So, well, that is really good information. So I do want you to share. So I'm going to try that. And I encourage everyone to give that a shot. You did a presentation for my networking group a few weeks ago. That was awesome. People are still texting me about it, about email subject lines. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna start with that, and then I just thought of another question I'm going to get to regarding blogs. But let's do the email subject lines first. A lot of people think emails are dead. They're annoying. I don't open them. I get 1,000 a day. What do you suggest? First of all, I don't believe emails are dead at all. I think email is still an incredibly viable way to market your information, incredibly. But what do you need to do to get people to look at it and open it?
Well, that's a great question. And actually, a lot of the rules that I'm going to give you about email subject lines will work with your social media updates. They will work with blog posts as well. Number one, you need to spend as much time thinking about your title as you do the entire post, article, or newsletter.
I agree with that.
I think people shortchange it, but the truth is, if I don't hook you with your subject line, you're never going to read my fabulous content.
Nope.
So that's number one. Number two, you got 5 or 6 words. Don't waste the real estate. For example, this week's update from. Doesn't matter. I know it's this week. I got a calendar. Update from. I can tell you who it's from because your name is in my inbox. You have now wasted 5 of the 7 words. So get rid of anything that is obvious and doesn't add value. Your headlines need to catch my attention. And there are a lot of ways that you can do it. You can do it what I call the pain headline. Okay. There's something about a train wreck. We can't look away, right? Mm-hmm. 5 mistakes every business owner makes. Okay. It's negative, and I kind of want to check it out because I want to make sure it's not me. Mm-hmm. Your competitor already knows this. Whoa. Okay, better read that. Mm-hmm. Or you can do things that are kind of quirky or fun. And I think one of my favorite ones, and I shared this, this is actually from a newspaper in the 1960s. It was a New York newspaper. And this is considered one of the best headlines because it's outrageous and it makes you want to read the article. There's this gruesome murder at a bar on Long Island, and the journalist gets sent out to Long Island. And this is a long time ago, so he's in the cab and he's driving out there and he's sort of getting his notes together because he's not going to have a lot of time by the time he finally gets out to Long Island and has to call the story in. So he's thinking about titles, and the whole way out there, all he's thinking is, please let it be a strip club. Please let it be a strip club, because he had the headline. Headless body found in Topless bar. You see this headline and it's on the cover of the newspaper and you think to yourself, oh my God, what the heck?
Yeah, you're reading that 100%
You're reading
of the
that. You can be funny. You can be serious. Some of my favorite techniques, I must be a failed poet because I definitely failed poetry. But there's this technique where every word in your title begins with the same letter. We do this a lot with our cookbooks. Savory seasonal soups, wonderful winter warmers. That rhythm kind of gets people's attention because all visually the same letters keep popping up, and it pulls the reader in.
That's called alliteration, isn't it? Or
yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. That is excellent advice right there.
Okay. So one of the other techniques, it's cultural references. you have to be careful because if your audience doesn't get the reference, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Right.
Memes are definitely an example of those cultural references.
Right.
So if a pet food store did who let the dogs out sale this week, everybody who sees it of a certain age is going to remember the band, the Rasta band, who'd be the who let the dogs out, right?
Yes.
But if you're 16 years old, you're like, what the heck is wrong with you?
I know, right?
And it goes right over your head. So if you're going to use cultural references in your headlines, you got to really know who your audience is.
It's funny that you say that. When I watch, there's commercials that do that too, and you'll see it as a cultural reference. And I always think to myself, that's a good commercial, but my teenagers are not going to know anything of, what this means, or I'll be sitting there with them and they have no idea what it means. So you're right. Sometimes it's done on purpose, but sometimes it completely misses the mark too.
Well, part of that is if you really know who your customer is,
right.
If you know you are targeting someone of a certain age, and then cultural references are incredibly powerful.
Oh, absolutely. I agree. 1,000%.
If you're trying to target everybody, well, number one, that is a stupid idea.
Right.
But beyond that, you can't use the cultural reference.
So I want to, you reminded me of something with your wasting the real estate. Donald Miller, who was of, building a story brand, big fan of his. I'm actually a certified guide. He said something once that I'll never forget. And it's all about, he's obviously a writer at heart. He wrote many books before he started his marketing company. He said, so many people waste so much information in an email or in a letter without getting to the point. And his example was, I get so many emails that say, hi, Lorraine, today I'm going to tell you about this. He's like, don't tell me you're going to tell me. Just tell me. Don't spend all of that 2 sentences telling me that you're going to tell me what you're going to tell me. Just say it. And he's so right. It's like the same thing in the subject line. Don't say something that's obvious. Just say it.
Say it. Well, and that, hi, I'm going to tell you about this. That's old. And as a sales trainer, you probably remember this old sales presentations. Tell them what you're going to tell them.
Yep.
Tell them what you told them. Because people have individually, we are brilliant. Collectively, we have the attention span of a flea and we remember nothing.
Correct. Yep.
So I think that's kind of a holdover from that. And it's one of those things that didn't translate really well.
Yeah. And I also think that it's someone, most people are not confident in writing. And I think it's a way that you're trying to almost be casual and you're not confident in your writing to say what you want to say. I think that's just a common trait with most people who, don't and either enjoy writing or don't know how to write or are just not comfortable with it. So I think that's part of it.
I think, it kind of ties to something I think my uncle used to say was that, and I know other people have used this as well, I was going to send you a short note, but I didn't have time, so I sent you a long letter instead. Because, and you've been in meetings with people like this. They talk and talk and talk, and eventually they get around to the point.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder if you only have 100 words, 5 minutes, 2 minutes. Suddenly you got to get really focused, and every word counts. And
it's very difficult to do that. Extremely difficult to do it. It really is. That's why they pay good copywriters a lot of money, because they can get that down. So great stuff. So tell me, are there anything? So first of all, tell us about. Oh, here's what I wanted to ask you about the blogs. I read on LinkedIn the other day, or maybe it was last week. Some guy was claiming that blogs are dead. Don't do a blog anymore. That was his whole post, and there was a lot of comments back and forth, and I'm not sure if he did it to rile people up or whatever, but I got to thinking about it, and I remembered, I got to ask Lorraine this. So I don't believe it. I think blogs are still very important. What's your thoughts on that?
Everything is different. I've been blogging since 2007 or 2008. And back in the day, you used to write a blog post and real people would comment on it. And you would talk back and forth, kind of like the way we connected on LinkedIn. Yeah. I have friends that I've never met in person, but we connected by interacting on each other's blogs. Mm-hmm. People don't do that much anymore.
Right.
I think blogs still have value for SEO perspective. Mm-hmm. I think blogs are really valuable as part of your sales process. For example, we have I was talking to somebody today. We're going to do some training for his sales guys on how to use LinkedIn. And he says, oh, he's got a great profile picture. And I looked at it and I was like, no, it sucks. He's standing next to a piece of equipment and his little head is this big. He's like, well, what's wrong with it? And I said, you know what? I have a blog post. I am just going to send you a link. And so blog posts that answer, again, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, that answer those questions that customers always have, those blog posts always have value.
Yeah, I agree.
Another blog post that I use all the time. A lot of my customers in the early days did not understand why they needed hosting. They needed to buy a domain and pay for a website. And so I used to explain it. Well, you see, we build mobile homes and your website is kind of a mobile home. Once we build it, you can drive it anywhere. But it's no fun to live in if you don't have running water and electricity. And that's what you get from your host. And so you gotta host somewhere. You gotta pull your mobile home into a trailer park. And if you want anybody to find you, you gotta have an address. That's your domain name. I finally wrote that blog post. And every time somebody would ask me that question, I would just hit send. And they thought I was brilliant. Well, I am brilliant.
Well, you are brilliant. And which is why I only have brilliant people on this podcast. You know that, right?
Absolutely.
You know what's crazy to me is people are still asking the question, why do I need a website if you're still getting that?
Well, they understand that, but they don't understand always kind of how hosting. You mean I got to pay for this every year? Yes. Yeah. Yes, you do. You know, I ignored that. Really, what happened? Well, they took my website down.
They towed my trailer home away, my mobile home.
Yes, they did. They repossessed my trailer.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, what trends do you see happening right now? We're getting toward the end here because we're almost at 40 minutes. Believe it or not, This goes so fast, crazy, right?
Yeah.
But what are you seeing right now? Again, you got, obviously, I tell people all the time, you got to be on LinkedIn. You know, LinkedIn's the place. That's where I get most of my clients now and most of my, networking people. And especially in the world of COVID, when we're not meeting, we're not doing, face-to-face networking. What are you seeing out there?
So this is really interesting because we started in 2009. We did our first survey. We asked small business owners, are you using social media? Which social media platforms are you using? And one of the things that happened is Facebook and LinkedIn kind of did this, where Facebook started really overtaking LinkedIn, even for B2B companies. And what I'm seeing this year is exactly what you're saying, that LinkedIn is really starting to come back. I think Microsoft, I was concerned about the Microsoft acquisition of LinkedIn. I think they've done a really good job of actually making the platform, it's simple. They all have quirks, but I think it's a really solid platform. And I think the algorithm really works. I think there's a good balance of paid content and free. I think there continues to be this there's still people still think I got to be everywhere, and that continues to plague a lot of people. As they. And, oh my God, podcasts are so hot right now. And I'm waiting for it to die down a little bit, because it happens with everything. Everybody jumps on board, and then they figure out it's a lot of work, and they all go away. And people like us that are kind of committed to this will have the space to ourselves again pretty soon.
I hope so. I mean, tell people you have over 500 episodes. Is that correct? That is like, kudos to you. That is amazing.
Thank you.
This is episode 24, and I'm like, holy crap, she has 500. That's just, so when did you start this? When did you start your blog?
The podcast. Well,
the podcast.
The podcast. We actually started a little bit in 2009, kind of some different experiments. And then January 3rd, 2010 was our first, okay, this is it, and we're going to go forward. And we've experimented with a lot of different formats. If you can imagine, we did Blog Talk Radio had a call-in function, because in the early days of podcasts, they were just free radio programs. So we had a call-in show. Oh my God. Live call-in.
Oh no.
Oh my God. But one of the things that it allowed us to do that I can't do anymore, that I really loved, was I had one person on my team who was on Twitter when we were on the air, and they'd be retweeting things that we'd be saying. And so you had this wonderful virtuous circle between the podcast and Twitter. Twitter changed. Live broadcast got a little exhausting. Yeah. So we've settled on a format that really works for us. Every Thursday, we release a 10-minute interview. So it's just a really brief highlight conversation. And then every Sunday morning, it is about a minute and a half, just little marketing inspiration tip. And for our audience, business owners, what we see is, number one, they don't have the time to necessarily sit back and watch an entire episode. Right. With the shorter shows, they binge. I can tell based on shows that kind of, what people are listening to, and you can see, they downloaded that, then they downloaded that, then they downloaded. Yeah. So, yeah. But no, we've had a lot of fun.
And it's audio only, right? It's not video. Is it just audio?
It's not video. Again, it two things. Number one, I don't have to put on makeup, and I can do it in my fuzzy slippers. But also acknowledging the audience that I'm going after. Right. They are listening to the podcast on their way to somewhere else while they're doing something else. I do other videos and they get views. People on the podcast just want to listen. Yeah. Driving to work or working out, like that. Yeah. Well, that's cool. Well, we are at the Ask Alan segment of the podcast. Okay. And I did find I get questions every week, and I try to pick a question that has a little bit to do with my guest. And I found a pretty cool email question. This is from Gary in Port St. Lucie, Florida. So we have a Port St. Lucie. That's where the Mets training facility is. Not a Mets fan, but I just happen to know that, or used to be. Gary asks, tell me how important it is to start using videos for email. Interesting question.
I'm going to let you answer first, and then I'm going to give my answer to that.
There is some data that shows that emails with videos will have a 2 times a constant contact. Had some data on that you'll get twice as much engagement. I think you have to be careful about the video player, because one of the things that happens is it looks like the video is embedded in the email, but it's really not. It's hosted somewhere else. Yep. And so depending on how you hit the play button, suddenly they're on YouTube or Vimeo, and they've left your email. They watch the video, but they don't come back. I would recommend, if you're going to put video in your email, make the destination be on your website right next to whatever it is your offer is for that week.
Wow, that's a great piece of advice. So I agree 100%. I started using Loom, Loom, which is
I love Loom.
Boom Boom or Bomb Bomb, I think, is out there. I have settled recently on Vidyard. Have you tried Vidyard at all?
No.
Vidyard, Vidyard. And what I like about Vidyard is it does keep the video in your email. You can watch you can watch the little, it's like a thumbnail video, or you can go to the main video, which is hosted on your Vidyard site. And it also has call to action buttons.
I like that.
In the video. So
I like that.
But the point is to Gary, you absolutely should be using videos, especially in emails where you want some sort of response or you want someone to open it. If it's a video email, the open rate is almost twice as much as a regular email. It's shocking. It's a lot. I always use, like, for example, when I do a proposal, I always do a video. Hey, Lorraine, here's the video. Here's the proposal I promised you. Let me know if you have any questions, blah, blah, blah. 15-second video, but they open it.
Yeah. So I like that. I really like that.
It's a really cool thing to do.
And it helps if you tell people there's a video.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I do a webinar and then I have the recording, if I tell people the recording link is in the newsletter, I have a much higher open rate than if I just say webinar recap.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same thing with the video DMs on LinkedIn. You know, so many people are not using that. And if you want someone to open your LinkedIn message, send them a video DM or even an audio one. A typed one, I think, has a 40% open rate. It jumps up to 80-something% as a video DM. It's crazy. So video is definitely, I want to say, the wave of the future, but the future's here. And the train is leaving the station, so people better get on it with things that you spoke about and obviously the video.
Absolutely.
So, Lorraine, how can people find you? How can they find your podcast? How can they hire you to do this amazing marketing work? Where do they go?
So More Than a Few Words is my podcast, and you can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want help with your marketing, roundpeg.biz. And if you're kind of a do-it-yourselfer and you're like, Lorraine, this is all great, but I just give me instructions and let me go. We have moved all of our training resources to the Digital Toolbox at digitaltoolboxin.com.
Digital Toolbox IN is in Indiana?
Yeah. That's the Digital Toolbox started as a conference, and we had visions of doing it in Indiana and Cincinnati and Ohio and Pennsylvania. And the Indiana event was great. And then, we were supposed to do another Indiana event this summer. We know what happened with that, don't we?
Yeah. Something small happened in the world.
We pivoted and we took all of our training material online, and it's been a great year.
So basically you can go to this and sign up and watch courses and things like that you guys have put together. Oh, that's awesome. That's great stuff. Okay. So, and you're also on LinkedIn. Are you under Lorraine Ball or you're under Roundpeg on LinkedIn?
Both. But if you want to chat with me, look for Lorraine Ball.
And it's LORRAINE and Ball as in Lucille Ball or throw the ball, BALL.
That's right. And actually, if you Google me, I've worked really hard over the last 18 years. I pretty much own page 1 of Google. There is some annoying woman in England. She's an Oxford professor who has my name. I pretty much have pushed her off of page 1.
Well, when you Google Alan Langer, you get me and you get a famous rugby player in England who has the exact same spelling of me. I think he makes a little more money than me, but the two of us occupy page 1 under my name. So
those darn Brits.
Those Brits are killing us over in the UK. Lorraine, thank you very much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it. I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. So once again, everyone, thanks for joining us at the episode 24 of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. Gary, thanks for your question. You are going to receive a free autographed signed copy of my book. And again, anyone wants to contact Lorraine, find her on LinkedIn. And next week, we've got another great guest lined up, so I hope you can join us. Once again, Alan Langer here for Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. We'll see you next time.